Good evening and welcome to the Tin Angel. Would you please put your hands together for Country Joe McDonald?
This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Island, from Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. As I went walking that ribbon of highway, I saw above me an endless skyway. I saw below me Golden Valley. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. I roamed and rambled, I followed my footsteps from the sparkling sands of the diamond deserts, and all around me a voice was sounding. This land was made for you and me. Sing along if you want. This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. For the sun was shining as I went strolling, and the wheat fields waving, and the dust clouds blowing, and the fog was lifting, and a voice was chanting. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. As I went walking, I saw a sign there, and on that sign it said, no trespassing, but on the other side it didn't say nothing. That side was made for you and me. This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. Nobody living could ever stop me as I go walking that freedom highway. Nobody living can make me turn back. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. Well, that's Woody Guthrie's most famous song, This Land Is Your Land. Some people consider it to be the unofficial national anthem of the United States of America. I just grew up in my family with Woody Guthrie music. We had it on 78 records when I was a little kid, and we had a collection of albums, an album of 78s called Ballads of the Dust Bowl. In 1969, I recorded the first tribute to Woody Guthrie record that had been made at that time, and I recorded it in Nashville with some of the greatest country and western session players that were around at that particular time. In 2001, I was asked by the John Steinbeck Center in Salinas, California, if I would do a live performance to accompany a traveling Woody Guthrie show that was coming to the museum there, and it was coming from the Woody Guthrie Archives in New York City.
and I said I'd be glad to do that. So I thought I would sing Woody Guthrie songs for that concert, and I revisited my Woody Guthrie library and started looking at Woody Guthrie stuff and looking at lyrics to refresh my memory. And I found some spoken word stuff that I'm going to do tonight from his autobiography, from his column that he wrote for a newspaper called Woody Says, songs written by a friend of mine about Woody Guthrie, a song written by Arlo Guthrie and Nora Guthrie's brother, Jody Guthrie, that I recorded when I made an album of him a few years back, and also a little bit from my father's autobiography. He was born in Oklahoma, and he wrote his autobiography. And so this little tribute is about Woody Guthrie and about his music and about his writings, but it's also about Oklahoma, and it's also about myself. I'm going to start off by singing a song written by a guy named Barry Lee Maris after he read Elizabeth Partridge's great book on Woody Guthrie's life, which came out about 5 years ago. And Barry is a singer-songwriter. He also had a restaurant and a bar in Duncan's Mills, California, which is a little town where I live, in between Guerneville and Jenner by the Sea. If you blink your eyes, you'll drive right through it. The restaurant is called the Blue Heron. It's a really nice place. Great food. It's got sold and it's opening up pretty soon, if you're ever around there. Anyway, Barry Lee Maris owned the place for a long time. He was a singer-songwriter, and he gave me this song. I liked it a lot, and I'm going to start off here by singing this song about Woody Guthrie's life. It's called Every Time His Songs Are Sung.
In the town of Okemah, in the Oklahoma hills, on a hot and cloudless July day when the weather almost kills, Nora had a baby, Charlie had a son. Now Woody has a birthday every time his songs are sung. Woody was a loner, he loved to read and write. He loved the good time story boys who kept him up all night. But his mom got sick and his sister died. His daddy's luck ran low, and at 14 years of age, Woody Guthrie hit the road. Then Charlie moved to Pampa on the dusty Texas trail. Woody got a drugstore job selling bootleg ginger ale. He met a guitar picker who taught him how to play, and Woody ain't stopped singing ever since that day. Oh, the dust blew hard and heavy on that little Texas town. Woody grabbed the guitar, he was California bound. He crossed the migrant checkpoints where they turned the Okies back by riding empty freight trains and hoboing the track. Woodrow Wilson Guthrie's gone again, probably somewhere out on the road again. Maybe Woody's heading home again, but then again, everywhere that Woody went was home to him. Catch a ride to Pampa, sing another song, talk to Mom and Grandpa and wonder what went wrong. Kiss the wife and kids hello, then sing 'em "You're So Long" from the New York Islands to the California line. He sang the songs his mother sang when she was just a girl. He sang the songs a soldier sang as he tramped around the world. He sang like the yodeling brakeman, he sang like Cotton Eye Joe. He sang in hobo jungles, even sang on the radio. Then Woody looked around him up and down the road. He saw his fellow travelers with a hard and a heavy load. So he changed the words to a few old songs, changed his point of view. He said, from now on, struggling friends, I'm singing just for you. So Woody hit the highways wherever they might lead. He rode and sang of hunger, of poverty and greed. He sang of this land's beauty, from her mountains to her trees. He said he could only write as much as he could see. Now Woody Guthrie's gone again, he's out there rambling round. He's probably in your schoolyard or on your old playground. He's probably at your job at work, in your heart or on your tongue. Now Woody has a birthday every time his songs are sung. Woodrow Wilson Guthrie's gone again, probably somewhere out on the road again. Maybe Woody's head home again, but then again, everywhere the Woody went was home to him. Catch a ride to Pampa, sing another song, talk of Mom and Grandpa and wonder what went wrong. Kiss the wife and kids hello, then sing 'em your so long, from the New York Islands to the California line.
Well, in Barry's song, he talks about Woody getting a job selling bootleg ginger ale. But in Woody Guthrie's sometimes fictitious autobiography, Bound for Glory, he talks about selling root beer. Woody Guthrie. I got a job selling root beer. It was just a big barrel with a coil running around inside of it. And it cost you a nickel for me to pull the handle, lesson you was a personal friend of mine, in which case I'd draw you off a mug for free. Prohibition was on and folks seemed like they were dry. The first day I was there, the boss comes around, he says, "Here's your day's pay. We pay every day here. Business is rushing good, but we might have to close up any day now, nobody can tell." Another thing I want to show you about is this little door right down here under the counter. You see this little door? Well, you push this little trigger right here, just like that. And then you see this door comes open. Then you see inside there's some little shelves. On these little shelves, as I suppose you can see, are some little bottles. These little bottles are 2 ounces. They are 50 cents a bottle, and they are patented medicine. I think they're called Jamaica Ginger or just plain Jake. A mixture of ginger and alcohol. The alcohol is about 99%. So now in case anybody comes in with their thumbnail busted or ankle sprung, or a snake bit, or has got ancestors of the epizootic, or the hoof and mouth disease, or is otherwise sick and feeling poorly, and got 50 cents cash money on them, get the 50 cents. Then reach down here and give them one of these little bottles of Jake. Be sure to put the money in the register. Well, I worked there only about a month. I saved up $4 and to boot, I got an inside view of what the human race was drinking. You couldn't tell any more about the rot gut called whiskey than you could about the Jake. It's just about as poison. Lots of people fell over dead and was found scattered here and yonder with different kinds of whiskey poisoning. I hated Prohibition on that account. I hated it because it was killing people, paralyzing them, causing them to die like flies. I've seen men sit around and squeeze that old pink candy through an old dirty rag, get the alcohol drained out of it, and then drink it on down. The papers carried tales about the men that drunk radiator alcohol and died from rust poisoning. Others come down with the beer head. That's when your head starts swelling up and it just don't quit. Usually you take the beer head from drinking home brew that ain't made right or is fermented in old rusty cans like garbage cans, oil drums, gasoline barrels, or slop buckets that cause some of the people to die. They even had a kind of beer called Old Chalk. It was made by throwing everything under the sun into an old barrel, adding the yeast and sugar to it, and letting it go. Biscuit heels, cornbread scraps, potato leavings, and all sorts of table scraps went into this beer. It's a whitish, milky, slicky-looking bunch of crap. But especially down in Oklahoma, I've seen men drive 15 miles out in the country just to get a hold of a few bottles of it. The name Chalk came from the Choctaw Indians. I guess they just naturally wanted to celebrate one way or another and thought a little drink would fire them up so as they break loose, forget their worries, and have a good time. When I was behind the counter, men would come in and purchase bay rum, and I'd get a look into their puffy, red speckled faces, their bleary, batty eyes that looked but didn't see, that went shut but never slept, that closed but never rested, that dreamed but never arrived at a conclusion. I would see a man come in and buy a bottle of Coca-Cola, buy a bottle of rubbing alcohol, go outside, mix them half and half, drink it on down, wheeze for a few seconds, and then waddle on away. One day my curiosity licked me. I said I was going to taste a bottle of that Jake for myself. Man ought to be interested. I drawed up about a half a mug of root beer. It was cold and nice, and I popped the stopper out of one of the little Jake bottles and I poured the Jake into that root beer. When that Jake hit that beer, it commenced to cook it. And there was 7 civil wars and 2 revolutions broke out inside that mug. The beer was trying to tame the Jake down, and that Jake was trying to eat the beer up. They sizzled and boiled and sounded about like bacon frying. The Jake was chasing the little bubbles, and the little bubbles was chasing the Jake. And the beer spun around like a whirlpool in a big swift river. It went around and around so fast, it made a little funnel right in the middle. I waited about 20 minutes for it to settle down. Finally, it was about the color of a new tan saddle and about as quiet as it would get. So I bent over it and stuck my ear down over the mug, spewing and crackling like a machine gun. But I thought it best to drink it before it turned into a waterspout or a dust storm. I took it up and took it down. It was hot and dry and gingery and spicy and cloudy and smooth and windy and cold and threatening rain or snow. I took another big swallow and my shirt come unbuttoned like I was pouring myself full of homemade soapy dishwater. I drank it all down, and when I woke up, I was out of a job. Well, you can't separate Woody Guthrie and his music and his writings and his drawings from something called the Great Depression that happened in this country in the 1920s, the late 1920s and into the 1930s. That's when the economy failed, the stock market went bust. Banks just closed their doors and didn't give people their money. Homes were foreclosed on, people were fired from their jobs, businesses just went bust, and millions of people didn't have any money and were dirt poor. Another thing that happened at the same time was a great drought, or as we would call it today, a drought in the midwestern part of the United States. In Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, Kansas, it didn't rain. It didn't rain but a little teeny tiny bit for a long, long time, for years and years. And it got so that the soil was so dry that it was like powder. And when the wind would come whipping along, and it would pick up that topsoil and it would just carry it for miles and miles and miles. You could see it coming like a big storm cloud or a fog bank, but it wasn't water particles. It was dust and dirt, and it would cover up everything. It got into everything. It caused health problems because people breathed it. It ruined machinery. It just ruined everything, and people packed up everything they had, what little bit they could do and what they could carry, and they left where they were living, and they went, lots of them, to the West Coast, somewhere else to find a job of work and get a hot meal and just find a better way of life. This is called the Talking Dust Bowl because that's what they call that part of the country. They call it the Dust Bowl, and it's about that time. Along about 1927, I had a little farm and I called that heaven. Prices up, the rain come down, and I hauled my crops all into town. I got the money, bought clothes and groceries, fed the kids and raised a big family. But the rain quit, the wind got high, the black old dust storms filled the sky. I traded my farm for a Ford machine, poured it full of this gasoline, started rocking and rolling across deserts and mountains out to California. Well, way up yonder on a mountain road, a hot motor and a heavy load road. I was going pretty fast and I wasn't even stopping, bouncing up and down like popcorn and popping had a breakdown. Sort of a nervous bust down. Mechanic feller there charged me $5. Said it was engine trouble. Well, way up yonder on a mountain road, way up yonder in the piney wood, I give that rolling Ford a shove. Gonna coast just as far as I could. Commenced to rolling, picking up speed. Come a hairpin turn and I didn't make it. Well, man alive, I'm telling you that the fiddles and the guitars really flew. That Ford took off like a flying squirrel, flew halfway around the world, scattering furniture and children all over the side of that mountain. Well, we got to California so dadgum broke, so dadgum hungry that I thought I'd choke. I bumped up a spud or two and the wife fixed up some tater stew. Poured the kids full of it. Mighty skinny kids look like a tribe of thermometers are running around. Lord, man, I swear to you, that surely was mighty thin stew, so damn thin. I really mean you could read a magazine right through it and see pictures of beautiful cars, beautiful people. You know, I always have thought and I always have figured if that stew'd been just a little bit thinner, some of these here politicians could have seen through it. Well, hundreds of thousands of those people just left wherever they were living. They had nothing to stay there for, and they just, one way or another, they hitchhiked, or they rode freight trains, or they drove in cars, or they rode horses and mules, and they headed out for California by the hundreds of thousands of them. But when they got to California, they found out what most people who live in California already knew, that if you ain't got money, if you ain't got the bucks, if you ain't got the paper, if you ain't got the do-re-mi, California can be a pretty unfriendly place. Lots of folks back east, they say, are leaving their farms every day, hitting that hot old dusty way to the California line. Across the desert, sands they roll, getting out of the old dust bowl. Think they're heading for Sugar Bowl, but this is what they find. Holy sad port of entry, say, you're number 14,000 for today. Hey, and if you ain't got the do-re-mi, folks, if you ain't got the do-re-mi, you better go back to beautiful Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Georgia, Tennessee. California is a garden of Eden, a paradise living in the sea. But believe it or not, you will find it so hot if you ain't got the do-re-mi. Now you might have a house or a farm that can't do nobody no harm. Take your vacations by the mountains or the sea. Don't trade your cow for a car. You better stay right where you are. And you better take this little tip from me, 'cause I look through want ads every day, and the headlines on the papers always say, hey, if you ain't got the do-re-mi, folks, if you ain't got the do-re-mi, well, you better go back to beautiful Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Georgia, Tennessee. California is a garden of Eden, a paradise living in the sea. But believe it or not, you will find it so hot if you ain't got the do-re-mi. Well, there's an old folk song called Going Down the Road Feeling Bad. The Carter family recorded it, lots of people recorded it. Lee Hayes from the Weavers wrote a Dust Bowl version with Woody Guthrie called Blowing Down the Old Dusty Road. I'm going to do that, and I added a few little new words to it myself. Blowing down the old dusty road.
Well, I'm blowing down the old dusty road. I said I'm blowing down the old dusty road. You know I'm blowing down the old dusty road. Good God, I ain't gonna be treated this way. I said I'm going where the dust storms never blow. You know I'm going where the dust storms never blow. I said I'm going where the dust storms never blow. Good God, I ain't gonna be treated this way. Oh yeah, I'm going down the old dusty road. I said I'm going down the old dusty road. You know I'm blowing down the old dusty road. Good God, I ain't gonna be treated this way. Well, I'm going where the water tastes like water. I said I'm going where the water tastes like water. You know I'm going where the water tastes like water. Good God, I ain't gonna be treated this way. Here we go down the road. Woo! Where the air is fresh and clean. Yeah, I'm going where the air is fresh and clean. I said I'm going where the air is fresh and clean. Good God, I ain't gonna be treated this way. You know I'm going down the old dusty road. I said I'm going down the old dusty road. Well, I'm going down the old dusty road. Good God, I ain't gonna be treated this way.
Well, as I mentioned, in 2001, when I was getting ready for this show, I was looking through a book. I remembered it was a book of reprints of Woody Guthrie's column that he wrote for the communist newspaper People's World out of San Francisco. The column was called Woody Says. I'm going to read a little bit from a column that he wrote about automobiles, and he talks about his wife and his two daughters. Woody Guthrie was married 3 times. The first marriage, of which this column is written about, they lived mostly in Texas and in California. They had 3 children. The second marriage, he was married to Marjorie Guthrie out of New York City, and they had 4 children. Arlo Guthrie, Nora Guthrie, Jody Guthrie, and Kathy. And Kathy died in a fire when she was about 5 years old in the apartment in New York City. Fire played an important part in Woody Guthrie's life. When he was a little boy, his sister caught on fire one day when she stayed home from school and was helping her mother around the house. They had an old wooden stove, and her clothes caught on fire. She ran around and sustained terrible burns, and she died of those burns within a couple days. Woody Guthrie's mother set the house on fire one day in Texas and burned it to the ground. Woody Guthrie himself set himself on fire with gasoline once, and his father set himself on fire once with gasoline. Woody Guthrie was divorced from Marjorie and then got married one more time, and they had another child by that marriage. Those are his legal children, but Arlo tells me that Woody Guthrie kids pop up all over the country all the time. So in addition to being a prolific songwriter and an artist and a writer, he was prolific in other ways also. So from Woody Says, his column about automobiles. A true story. My wife, the 2 daughters, and myself bought a used car the other day. It cost us $45 and the finance charges, etc. You know the old story. Run the price up to $61. First week we had it, the unusual joint fell out of it. We put in a new outfit. The battery wouldn't turn a jumping bean over. We bought a new one for $10. To pour oil in it was just like throwing oil out of the window. It used the court every time it backfired and 2 quarts when it run front ways. We all jumped in it and started down to San Diego. We got almost to Oceanside, 93 miles, and it throwed 3 rods around the block. 2 across the street, 9 up on top of a house, 4 through the engine head, and 1 through the radiator. We were stranded, refugees again. We had to sleep all night in the depot and called some friends over the phone wires to come and get us. I told the car company where the wreck was and to go and get it. They went down and got it, resold it again for $45, and sent me a bill for $6. I said I'm running for governor on the Chinese laundry ticket, and when I get elected, I'll pay you the $6. Shucks, I didn't know there was so much payoff to a gallon of gas. There was a woman in Berkeley, California, named Malvina Reynolds. When I got out of the Navy and I was going to college in Los Angeles State College in the beginning of the 60s, it was the folk music boom. There were a lot of people, Bob Dylan, Joan Baez, and all kinds of people playing folk music. And there was also folk music magazines, Sing Out Magazine, Boston Broadside, and New York Broadside. And I got in my head to make a magazine myself, and I did make a little magazine, and I wrote to Pete Seeger and to Malvina Reynolds if they would be advisors on the magazine, and they said that they would. And Malvina Reynolds became famous for, her most famous song was probably Little Boxes, about the houses in Daly City. She lived on Parker Street. They called her the Muse on Parker Street. She was a housewife, but also a singer-songwriter. Part of that group of people, Woody Guthrie was a part of, Pete Seeger, David Arkin, Waldemar Hilly, Guy Carawine, different people like that. So when I moved up to Berkeley, I asked her if she would, I used to go over and visit her house. Her song, Little Boxes, is now the theme song for a television show called Weed, about a suburban housewife who sells marijuana in suburbia to augment her income. And I'm sure Malvina would be very happy and enjoy that quite a bit. And I'm sure that Nancy enjoys the royalty checks, her daughter. But anyway, I asked Malvina in 1970 if she would sing along on a song, a Woody Guthrie song I was recording for an album on Fantasy Records. It's a little song I used to sing to my kids when they were going to nursery school, and it's about riding in cars, and it's called Let's Go Riding in the Car. So I'm going to sing the version Malvina and I sang together on that record. Oh, let's go riding in the car, car. Let's go riding in the car, car. Let's go riding in the car, car. Let's go riding in the car. And the door goes slam, slam. The door goes slam, slam. The door goes slam, slam. Let's go riding in the car. Hey, let's go riding in the car, car. Let's go riding in the car, car. Let's go riding in the car, car. Let's go riding in the car. And the horn goes beep, beep. And the horn goes beep, beep. And the horn goes beep, beep. Hey, let's go riding in the car. Oh, let's go riding in the car, car. Let's go riding in the car, car. Let's go riding in the car, car. Let's go riding in the car. And the seatbelt goes click, click. The seatbelt goes click, click. The seatbelt goes click, click. Hey, let's go riding in the car. Oh, let's go riding in the car, car. Let's go riding in the car, car. Let's go riding in the car, car. Let's go riding in the car. And the engine goes brum, brum. And the engine goes brum, brum. And the engine goes brum, brum. Let's go riding in the car. Let's go riding in the car. Let's go. Excuse me, I just got exhausted. Of course, I'm sure Woody Guthrie could never imagine the number of cars there are in the world today, the different kinds of cars, and the highways that there are, and the pollution from automobiles and gasoline and petroleum products. I was driving around New York, around Detroit City, a couple years ago with some friends of mine who live in Detroit. They said, Joe, you know, we're driving over the first 1 mile stretch of highway that was ever built just exclusively for cars, and it was made out of wood, and it was built by Henry Ford. And I thought, man alive, talk about an idea that took off. So when I was digging around in 2001 in my archives, I remembered that there was some letters that I'd seen from Malvina Reynolds to Woody Guthrie, and they were reprinted in a little magazine called The Little Sandy Review, which was a little magazine. It was about 6 inches tall and about 4 inches wide. It was stapled together and mimeographed, and it just reviewed folk song albums that were coming out at the time. I inherited a collection of them from John and Deirdre Lundberg's guitar shop when Deirdre passed away about 25 years ago. And these two guys who reviewed these albums became very famous pop and rock and roll critics later on, and one of them just passed away recently. There was a big story about him in Rolling Stone. So I dug around and got the copy of the magazines out, and I later gave the collection to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland. But I did find the letters there from Malvina Reynolds to Woody Guthrie and Woody Guthrie to Malvina Reynolds. Woody Guthrie suffered from a nervous disease, an inherited disease called Huntington's chorea or Huntington's disease. There's no cure for it, and you inherit it from a parent. Not every child inherits it, but Woody Guthrie's mother had the disease, and she was institutionalized in a mental institution because they thought she was insane, because they didn't know how to diagnose the disease at that particular time. Woody Guthrie in 1954 manifested severe enough symptoms from the disease that he was put into the Brooklyn State Hospital in 1954, and he remained in the hospital until he died October 3rd, 1967, the Summer of Love. He died in a hospital in New Jersey. So I'm going to start off with reading a letter from Malvina Reynolds to Woody Guthrie in the Brooklyn State Hospital. May 16th, 1955. Dear Woody, as soon as I get over this cold, I will make you some cookies. If there's one thing I'm famous for, besides writing songs about little girls in overalls, it's my ginger currant cookies. They not only taste very good, but they are very healthful, being full of vitamins and minerals and all disguised as delicious flavors. If you eat them, I am sure you will get well at once. Your letter was exasperating and frustrating. Every time I got to the exciting part, there was a word scrawled so that I couldn't make it out. And I'm a pretty good scrawl reader. My husband's handwriting is absolutely antisocial. My husband, named Bud, is a carpenter when he works, a very fine guy, but taciturn. That means he doesn't talk very much. And I wish some more of my friends were afflicted with that sickness. Many of them do not know the value of silence, which is some of the finest music in the world. Don't tell me you have to scrawl in important places, as in addressing my letter, or telling me you would appreciate some self-opening dates. Your handwriting is as clear as can be. So please write me your letter all over again, and if it isn't the same letter, at least be sure it's a letter I can read the most of. This one will keep me out of mischief for the next 10 years. That's too bad. I get into some of the best mischief you ever saw. His answer. Erie day a la Vini May. More folkses had oughtn't to been hitten by that silencing kind of dirt and maimer disease, oven by which you tell me you're a good man there's tooken with. I hear so many losery, wildery, damn flying crazery, goddamn frothery, foamery, goospity, guspity-eyed, slandering, accusing, falsy, lying, untrue, dishonesty, pokey-eyed, Jim Crowed, proused, proudified, proudy, hispindy, blabbering, bleeberty mouth, loserty lip, every street I walk down here and every place I go and pass and come to look and to listen that I feel I just about know for sure and for certain. I'd walk onto old sweet heaven if I ever did, or on a purpose or by blind accident, stumble into any damn place where most folks goes and lives by my good book and my Bibledy Bible of sweet old silence. Well, there's more on the same subject, but considering the limitations of the Little Sandy Review, which is not big, anyway, in handwriting, rented blue at the end of the typewritten letter is a slogan which became a household word in our household, the Malvina Reynolds household. Cookies talks louder than words. Next letter. Dear Vinny, your oatmealious currant ebony cookies made a bigger hit and a bigger splash around here in my 79 BSY hospitally ward than all our added efforts and energies and forces of cookie song making did make. I just stood here and handed your shoebox around, and they spoke into all my creeds and my breeds, in here lots plainer than all my sung and unsung words ever lit by man. I see now part ways how it is, that it must be all of them little old crispy brownerish damn things. I see you women folks run in unback out of my BSH 40 floor here that keeps every single damn solitary one of my hoppers here hopping our next hops and jumping our next jumps like we do. It's those little old browner roundish damn things you girly folks smuggle in at my old warty doors here, which gives us dang guys our strength enough to try to jump another skip and to keep on a hopping one more old day without ever quite clearly asking and stopping long enough to ask ourselves all these hows and whys, all them whoses and whiches in a very clearly conscious way. You hit down lots more on our old key secret of life around here than 100 old Albert Einsteins and me and Thomas Edison's and worldly wisery men ever did hit. I'm still yelling how cookies talks loudest. I mean, Woody. Part 2. Your little cookie things here prove to me how life its own self must dangle and jangle all around those damn pots and durned pans. You females sweat and clink and cuss and cry and weep and slave your old lives away over. I sure didn't start in to guess how your frying pans and your sizzly skillets there had that old key secret of life itself, which all my wisest heads and brains has all and each one missed our guesses at and our guesses about. I didn't know, which goes to show you, you never know any damn thing about anything for sure and for certain on this planet Earth here. And so I'm still a-saying as to, by God, how them darn damn little old bitsy brownie fried cookieful things of yours is one of my overlooked gifts of true, living, giving genius, which God and Christ has both poured all of my females so damn full of. You ladies and yours little old brownery shoeboxes, I guess, is what keeps life jumping around here on my greedy, worldly damn planet. I'm ready to lay you 10,000 to 1 here, that those you females and your boxes of dang browner cookies keeps my doctor and all of my student-y nursey ladies here and everywhere hopping our next long, lonesome hop in them same kind of half-blinded ways here I see my sickest ones hop. But my real problem now that stops me deady cold is this one. Just who fries your eatables for you lady folks? Just what gives you lady folks your everlasting powers to keep on frying and sizzling like you do? Just what gives you lady folks your everlasting powers to keep on a-frying and a-sizzling like you do? Just what power is it that gives you this kind of energizing power? Jesus and God both knows, but I don't. Woody Guthrie. Woody died in 1967, as I mentioned. In 1968 and 1970, there were 2 very large tribute to Woody Guthrie shows held. One at the Philharmonic Auditorium in New York City and one at the Hollywood Bowl in Los Angeles, California. They were both recorded on Columbia Records. Everybody who was anybody in the folk music and folk rock world, and actors and actresses included, participated in that. And I had the honor and privilege of being part of the Hollywood Bowl concert. At that time, Marjorie Guthrie approached me, Woody Guthrie's widow, along with Harold Leventhal, who administered to the Woody Guthrie estate, and asked me if I would put some music to Woody Guthrie lyric that didn't have music. At that particular time, no one had done that before. There's about 2,000 lyric that Woody Guthrie wrote that they don't have music for. And now quite a few people have made records and done that. Billy Bragg's made about 3 albums, and other people have made other albums of Woody Guthrie lyric, putting their own music to it. Also, they wanted Peter Fonda to read something from Woody Guthrie's novel, Seeds of Man. Both what Peter Fonda read and this song that they gave me the lyric were sexy and erotic lyric. They wanted to expand the image of Woody Guthrie and the knowledge that people had of him to include his erotic and sexy writings and drawings, of which he had quite a bit, and to take him from being just a folk singer or a protest songwriter. So I'm going to read now what Peter Fonda read that night from Woody's novel Seeds of Man, and then I'll sing the song with Woman at Home with Woody's lyric and my music to it. My body is naked now, and I was born naked. No matter how I dress up or undress, I am naked. The best and juiciest of humanly truths are naked truths. I feel the same way you feel about my naked places. None of my places feel their real best till I get them uncovered, unhid, stripped down naked. In my most naked thoughts, I've always laid flat on my back on the beds of living trees and grass, counting the tree buds with my hands and the night stars with my toes. Go ahead and use ribbon and lace to pull me toward you, and I'll use every trick of shadow and shaving to pull you closer towards me. Your face is already lifted to the sky, and its light makes me wild and crazy for the touch and taste of you. Your hips can't make a motion which I can say I hate. Your blood can't run in a way which I will stop and send back. Your legs can't open in a way that I will arrest. Your thighs can't move in a way that I would lock up behind bars. I love to see you wiggle, your patch of hairs in every kind of design, pattern, roll, sway, and twitch. I see and taste no sweat more honest than the drops you have enjoyed between your thighs. Your face looks its proudest, its finest and gladdest this minute as you do roll here like I roll. This look, this half smile across your face this very minute. Your hair is shaken above my eyes, makes me feel like a lost man getting found. Folk song singers go around singing how bad are the men, how sinful are the women. I got a woman at home, the gate is open for me. I got a woman at home, her arms open for me. The singers go around, do the same old thing, run my women down your slick sliding string. But I got a woman at home, the door is open for me. I got a woman at home, arms open for me. You grizzly bear boys, you fall high flyers, on 16 kids behind you in the passion fires. I got a woman at home, arms wide open for me. I got a woman at home, blankets open for me. I got a woman at home, I got a woman at home, I got a woman at home, yeah, I got a woman at home. I got a woman at home, yeah, got a woman at home. I'm a high ballad man, I'm a folk singer too. I sing about the good things men and women do. I got a woman at home, arms wide open for me. I got a woman at home, the sheets open for me. I was first born singing in this big world, raised by the laboring movements of 130 girls, and I got a woman at home, arms open for me. I got a woman at home, the door is open for me. I got a woman at home, 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 yeah, I got a woman at home. Thank you. That's the end of part one of my tribute to Woody Guthrie show. We're going to take a Little break now. I did bring some CDs which are for sale back at the bar if you're interested in. After the show, I also have some order forms for a two CD set, which I'll send you in the mail if you're interested in, and if you want to see me for autographs after the show. So we'll take a little break now and come back and do part 2 in a few minutes. Thank you.
Everything's fine, and we want you to sleep well.
All right, good evening and welcome back. Please welcome again, Country Joe McDonald.
Oh, the capitalists and the communists are divvying up the world, I guess it seems that way to me. And they both are democratic and out for liberty, but I think they're pulling the wool right over you and me. That's a little song by Jody Guthrie, Arlo and Nora Guthrie's brother. He's a singer-songwriter, lives out where I live in the Bay Area, in San Francisco Bay Area. And I made an album of him singing his own songs on my Rag Baby label. He's a red diaper baby. That means that his parents were American communists, and they call people who had parents like that red diaper babies. Myself, I'm a red diaper baby also. Jody has another little song that he sings about being a red diaper baby, and he explained the story of red diaper baby. The way he said it was that the members of the Communist Party back in the old days gave the Communist Party all their money for membership dues, and they had nothing left. The Communist Party gave them a little red flag in return, and they were so poor they had to diaper their babies with it. Woody Guthrie said, I ain't necessarily a communist, but I have been in the red all my life. He also said, a book ought to be like a woman's dress, short enough to get your interest, but long enough to cover the subject. He also said there's a lot of good ideas in a pint of port wine, but not so many in a quart. And I can attest to that being the truth. As I mentioned before, when I was younger, we had 78 records in my house, Woody Guthrie records, and we also had Union records, songs about the Union. My father was a cowboy, born in Oklahoma, a farm boy, and we actually broke a couple horses and used to ride horses around our little town in El Monte, California, where I grew up when I was younger. I remember one song from that day about the Union and about being a cowboy too. Probably remember it because of my father. I'll sing it for you now. And Woody Guthrie was also a cowboy. It's called Old Paint, the Horse with a Union Label. My daddy was a cowboy and I followed in his footsteps, riding the range. A cowboy's life is mighty lean when he ain't herding cows on a movie screen, so mind your daddy's advising. Old paint, a prouder horse there ain't. That's my old paint, a horse with a Union label. Woody had a very well-known song called Union Made about women in the Union. When I was putting together this show in 2001 and revisiting the lyrics, I noticed there's a third verse to the song that hardly anyone ever sings, and it's about the ladies' auxiliary. It seems like back in the day women were not allowed to join the Union proper. They were encouraged to join the ladies' auxiliary. Now, in this modern world of ours, this post-feminist world, it's hard for us to understand ladies' auxiliary, just a combination of those two words together. A friend of mine belongs to the San Francisco Yacht Club, and he says that they have a ladies' auxiliary in the San Francisco Yacht Club, but it may be the last ladies' auxiliary in the country, I think. But being prescient, Woody Guthrie thought that there would be a time when we wouldn't understand what ladies' auxiliary meant, so he wrote a little song about the ladies' auxiliary, and I'll sing it for you now, which explains it. Oh, the ladies' auxiliary is a good auxiliary. It's the best auxiliary that you ever did see. If you need an auxiliary, try the ladies' auxiliary. That's the ladies' auxiliary.
There once was a union maid who never was afraid of goons and ginks and company finks and deputy sheriffs who made the raids. She went to the union hall whenever the meeting was called, and when the company boys came round, she always stood her ground. Oh, you can't scare me, I'm sticking to the union. I'm sticking to the union. I'm sticking to the union. Oh, you can't scare me, I'm sticking to the union. I'm sticking to the union till the day I die. This union maid was wise to the tricks of company spies. She never got fooled by a company stool. She'd always organize the guys. She always got her way when she struck for higher pay. She'd show her card to the company guard, and this is what she'd say: oh, you can't scare me, I'm sticking to the union. I'm sticking to the union. I'm sticking to the union. Oh, you can't scare me, I'm sticking to the union. I'm sticking to the union till the day I die. You gals who wanna be free, just take a little tip from me. Get you a man who's a union man and join the ladies' auxiliary. Married life ain't hard when you got a union card. A union man has a happy life when he's got a union wife. Oh, you can't scare me, I'm sticking to the union. I'm sticking to the union. I'm sticking to the union. Oh, you can't scare me, I'm sticking to the union. I'm sticking to the union till the day I die. Till the day I die. Till the day I die. A union man has a happy life when he's got a union wife. I think it's a little more complicated than that. And I'm sure Dr. Phil would have a few things to say about it. Of course, those early pioneers of unionism paid a dear price for their activism. They were jailed and arrested, ostracized, and killed, and all kinds of terrible things happened to them. I'm going to read a little bit from Woody Guthrie's column, Woody Says. Stayed a few nights with an artist and a painter by trade. He's got a mighty good picture of a lynching hanging on my right wall, my right hand. And it shows you one man, a Negro man, already hung for excitement and entertainment, and another one being drug in and beat up with clubs and chains and fists and guns. So naturally I can't think up no jokes for today. This painting is so real, I feel like I was at a lynching, and it somehow or other just takes all of the fun and good humor and good sport out of you. To sit here and realize that people could go so haywire as to hang a human body up by a gallows pole and shoot it full of Winchester rifle holes for pastime. It reminds me of the postcard picture they sold in my hometown for several years. They're showing you a Negro mother and her two young sons hanging by the neck from a river bridge, and the wild wind whistling down the river bottom, and the rope stretched tight by the weight of their bodies. And the rope stretched tight like a big fiddle string. Ain't no telling how many will march by the songs that have whistled through the ribs of the poor lynch victims. Have you ever seen a man tie a slip knot? Have you ever seen a man tie a slip knot? You know he whines and he whines, and after 13 times, Lord, Lord, he's got him a slip knot. Tell me, will that slip knot slip? No, it will not. Tell me, will that slip knot slip? No, it will not. It will slip around your neck, but it won't slip back again. Lord, Lord, that slip knot. Tell me who is a vigilante man? Tell me who is a vigilante man? I keep on hearing that name all over the land. Tell me who is a vigilante man? Tell me what is a vigilante man? Tell me what is a vigilante man? Does he carry a sawed-off shotgun in his hand? Would he shoot his brother and sister down? Have you ever seen a man tie a slip knot? Have you ever seen a man tie a slip knot? You know he whines and he whines, and after 13 times, Lord, Lord, he's got him a slip knot. It's a mighty hard road that my poor hands have hoed. My poor feet have traveled hot dusty road. Out of your dust bowl and westward we roll. Your deserts was hot and your mountains were cold. I've worked in your orchards of peaches and prunes. Slept on the ground by the light of the moon. On the edge of your city you will see us, and then we come with the dust and we go with the wind. California, Arizona, I make all your crops. And it's up north to Oregon to gather your hops. Dig the beets from your ground, cut the grapes from your vine. Set on your table your light, sparkling wine. Green pastures of plenty from dry desert ground. From the Grand Coulee Dam where the water runs down. Every state in this union, as my friends has been, will work in this fight, and we'll fight until we win. And we'll fight until we win. Well, as always we've rambled that river and I. Along your green valley I will work until I die. My land I'll live in with my life vividly, 'cause my pastures of plenty must always be free. 'Cause my pastures of plenty must always be free.
He talks about the Columbia River in that last song, Pastures of Plenty. In 1941, when Woody was 28 years old, he was hired by the Bonneville Power Administration to go up to Portland, Oregon on the Columbia River and to write songs about public power and the Columbia River and the dam. The songs were recorded on acetate, and the acetates were lost. And but over the years, he recorded quite a few of the songs, and they were put together in a rounder record collection on a CD called the Columbia River Collection. My favorite from that collection of those songs is Roll on Columbia, about the Columbia River. And I'm going to sing that for you. It's a great sing-along song. I'll start off with the chorus. If you catch on, sing along in the chorus with me. Here we go. Roll on Columbia, roll on. Roll on Columbia, roll on. Roll on Columbia, roll on. Your power is turning our darkness to dawn. Roll on Columbia, roll on. Green Douglas firs where the water cut through. Down her wild mountains and canyons she flew. Canadian northwest to the ocean so blue. Let's roll on Columbia, roll on. Try it. Roll on Columbia, roll on. Roll on Columbia, roll on. Your power is turning our darkness to dawn. Roll on Columbia, roll on. Other great rivers add power to you. The Eskimo snake and the clicky tattoo. Sandy Willamette, the Hood River too. It's roll on Columbia, roll on. Roll on Columbia, roll on. Roll on Columbia, roll on. Your power is turning our darkness to dawn. So roll on Columbia, roll on. And up on the river is the Grand Coulee Dam, the mightiest thing ever built by our hand, to run the great factories and water the land. It's roll on Columbia, roll on. One more time. Roll on Columbia, roll on. Roll on Columbia, roll on. Your power is turning our darkness to dawn. So roll on Columbia, roll on. I mentioned Woody Guthrie was an Oklahoma farm boy, as was my father, and both of them wound up going to the East Coast and wound up marrying Jewish intellectual East Coast women. There seemed to be a lot of that going on at that particular time. When you grow up in a family like that, you wind up thinking, wonder, what the heck does people have in common? My father said that my mother and him shared a healthy disrespect for money. But I started thinking about it over the years, and I thought, I think what they had in common was chicken. Of course, my father never won an argument with my mother. And they even had arguments in the car driving along. You know, he would take a 20-minute walk. That was his technique. He just ran out of things to say, and he'd stop the car right on the freeway, and he'd get out and take a walk. My sister and I'd say, "Where's Dad going?" She'd say, "Oh, my mom would just say, he's taking a little walk. He'll be back in a few minutes." He'd come back in about 20 minutes, and they'd pretend nothing happened. And then they'd just drive off, you know. Of course, when Marjorie and Woody got in an argument, he'd hit the road for 2 months or so. Anyway, I'm going to read here some more from Woody Says, of Woody talking about New York City. New York is funny. The streets are half a block long and 3 blocks wide, and the town is half a town wide and 3 towns high. Boy, it really takes the nickels to live here. You can't get to first base unless you make 847,446 phone calls and take 85,756 buses every day. You got to spend 60 cents in nickels to see about a $1 job, then you got to spend the rest of the dollar to get to the right place at the right time. talking about the sky here in New York. You've got to give the taxi company 35 cents cash to get a cab driver to chase some down for you. That's the capitalist cistern for you. They build up so much buildings to beat you out of money with that they finally block out the sky and charge you 20 cents a mile to ride around and look at it. I believe there's more of New York underground than on top. They could have more people in these subway trains if they lay them down. When they got you to your station, they could shoot you home like a torpedo. The 5 o'clock trains was so crowded today you couldn't even fall down. I changed trains twice, and both times I come out with a different pair of shoes on. I'm still rambling around old New York, trying to find me a job of work. I've been here for about 3 weeks, walking around these old cold streets. Sometimes up and sometimes down, sometimes lost in a hole in the ground. Seems like 2 or 3 times a day I get lost down in the old subway. Electric train comes down the line, I catch on wrong most every time. One runs east and 2 go west. You wonder how to catch on best. 2 go south and 4 go north. You dang sure get your nickel's worth. You drop a nickel in the slot, grab your train that's good and hot. Sail on down a hole in the ground, ride that train all over town. Now people push and people jam. The jammin'est jam, I mean what am. You walk and nudge, you squirm and fall. Get up against that old cement wall. Ooze and duck and spar and strain, and then they shove you into the wrong damn train. Well, as I mentioned, it was at John Steinbeck Center in Salinas, California that got me started putting this show together. John Steinbeck, the writer, was famous for writing novels about that time period of the Great Depression. I think his most famous novel was probably Grapes of Wrath, which is still taught in required reading in school. It's about the Joad family and their journey from Oklahoma to California to try to find a better way of life and a job of work and get something to eat during the Depression. Grapes of Wrath was turned into a movie starring Henry Fonda, Jane Fonda and Peter Fonda's father. It opened up in New York City, and Woody Guthrie was living in New York at that time, staying in New York. Anyway, he went over to see the movie, and when he got back to his apartment he was staying at, because he was a true living, given, writing, creative genius, he sat down to a typewriter with a bottle of wine and he typed out 15 verses, which summed up the whole movie and the whole book in one kind of long ballad. I'm going to sing it for you now, the ballad of Tom Joad. Tom Joad got Tom Joad came a-walking down the road. Oh boy, Tom Joad came a-walking down the road. Was there that he met him, a truck driving man? Was there that he got him a ride? Said, I just got loose from a Callister pen on a charge called homicide. Good God, on a charge called homicide. Oh, the truck rolled away in a big cloud of dust, and Tommy, he started for home. He met Preacher Casey and they had a little drink, and he found out that his family, they were gone. Tom Joad, he found out that his family, they were gone. He found his mother's old-fashioned shoe. He found his daddy's hat. He found a little muley, and little muley said, they've been tractored out by the cats. Tom, they've been tractored out by the cats. Tommy went over to the neighboring farm and he found his family. They took Preacher Casey and they loaded in the car, and his mama said, we've got to get away. Tom, his mama said, we've got to get away. Oh, the 12 of the Joads made a mighty heavy load, and Grandpa Joe, he cried. He picked up a handful of land in his hand. He said, I'm sticking with my farm until I die. He said, I'm sticking with my farm until I die. They fed him spare ribs and coffee and soothing syrup, but Grandpa Joe, he died. They buried Grandpa Joe on the Oklahoma road. They buried Grandma on the California side. Good God, buried Grandma on the California side. They stood on a mountain and looked to the west, and it looked like the promised land. There was a big green valley with a river running through, and there was work for every single hand. They thought, work for every single hand. The Joads rolled into a jungle camp. It was there that they cooked them a stew. And the hungry little kids in a jungle camp said, we'd like to have some too. Yes, we'd like to have some too. And a deputy sheriff cut loose at a man, and he shot a woman in the back. But before he could take his aim again, it was Preacher Casey dropped him in his tracks. Good boy, Preacher Casey dropped him in his tracks. They handcuffed Casey and they took him to jail, and then he got away. He met Tom Joad by the old river bridge, and these few words he did say. Preacher Casey, these few words he did say. Well, I preached for the Lord a mighty long time. I preached about the rich and the poor. But us working folks has got to stick together, or we ain't got a chance anymore. God knows we ain't got a chance anymore. Then the deputies come and Tom and Casey run to a place where the water runs down. And a vigilante thug hit Casey with a club, and he laid Preacher Casey on the ground. Oh boy, laid Preacher Casey on the ground. Now Tommy, he grabbed that deputy's club, and he rung it down on his head. And when Tommy took flight that dark and rainy night, there was a preacher and a deputy lying dead. Two men, the preacher and a deputy lying dead. Tommy went back to where his mother was asleep, and he woke her up out of bed. He said goodbye to the mother that he loved, and then he said what Preacher Casey said. Tom Joad, he said what Preacher Casey said. Well, now everybody might be just one big soul. It looks that way to me. And everywhere you go in the day
That's where I'm gonna be, Mom. That's where I'm gonna be. Wherever little kids are hungry and cry, wherever people are free, wherever folks are fighting for their rights, that's where I'm gonna be, Mom. That's where I'm gonna be.
Well, Woody Guthrie left Oklahoma, and I don't think he ever went back. My father left Oklahoma, and he never did go back. He didn't even communicate with kin and family and friends back in Oklahoma. My cousin Henry told me that he'd be driving around the country, and he'd call up his pop, my Uncle Angus, and he'd say, "I'm close to the old homestead. Should I go and check it out?" And Uncle Angus would say, "For God's sakes, go around Oklahoma, don't go into it." So those people had a kind of mixed feelings about Oklahoma. Woody Guthrie wrote a country western standard with his cousin Jack Guthrie called Oklahoma Hills. It's a beautiful song about Oklahoma. It reminds me of my own father, and I'll sing it for you now.
Many a month has come and gone since I wandered from my home in those Oklahoma hills where I was born. Many a page of life has turned, many a lesson I have learned, and I feel like in those hills I still belong. Way down yonder in the Indian Nation, I rode my pony on the reservation in those Oklahoma hills where I was born. Way down yonder in the Indian Nation, a cowboy's life was my occupation in those Oklahoma hills where I was born. As I sit here today, many miles I am away from the place I rode my pony through the draw, where the oak and blackjack trees kiss the purple prairie breeze, and I feel like in those hills I still belong. Way down yonder in the Indian Nation, I rode my pony from the reservation in those Oklahoma hills where I was born. Way down yonder in the Indian Nation, a cowboy's life was my occupation in those Oklahoma hills where I was born. Now as I turn life a page to the land of the great Osage, in those Oklahoma hills where I was born, where the black oil rolls and flows and the snow white cotton grows, and I feel like in those hills I still belong. Oh, way down yonder in the Indian Nation, I rode my pony on the reservation in those Oklahoma hills where I was born. Way down yonder in the Indian Nation, the cowboy's life was my occupation in those Oklahoma hills where I was born.
My father, Worden Calhoun McDonald, wrote an autobiography titled An Old Guy Who Feels Good. And he sold it in Berkeley, California up on Telegraph Avenue with the other vendors up there for many years. And I meet people all the time as I travel around the country who had a nice chat with my daddy up there and bought one of his books. I still have a few copies. You can get it on my website if you go there from the country store. countryjoe.com. I'm going to close out my show now by reading a little bit from my father's book, from the chapter titled Oklahoma, Where Everything Began. You may remember that the Jode family and Steinbeck's Grapes of Wrath began their westward journey from Sallisaw, Oklahoma. In a manner of speaking, I knew the Jodes very well, for I was born in Sallisaw and spent my first 15 years helping my hard-working preacher father dig a living from a rocky hillside farm 1.5 miles from town. I was an ignorant country kid in many ways. I had never tasted cheese blintzes nor suspected that Jack London wanted to overthrow the government, and that he wrote stories only for money. I had no idea that my ancestor, President Andrew Jackson, was an alcoholic, and that he drove the Cherokees like cattle from their homeland in Georgia to the Indian Territory where I grew up. I knew all about birds, bees, and livestock, but very little about people. Although one of my father's friends had given me a book concerning the joys and pitfalls of masturbation. I used to wonder how women looked above their shoe tops. Young people have come a long way since I began growing up, and so have I. In 1970, I attended a lecture in Berkeley. A young girl came beside the man on stage, looked into his eyes, and without dropping her gaze, undressed herself completely. She was beautiful. In my day, this would have broke up the meeting. In fact, it would have set civilization back 1,000 years. But the reaction of these 2,000 young people was, come on, put your clothes on. We want to hear the man talk. Yeah, you said it. She dressed herself, and Timothy Leary continued his lecture. I was born in Sallisaw, June 2nd, 1907. This was to be the Indian Territory as long as the grass grows and the water flows. But in 1906, it was discovered that there was good land and oil there, so we took it away from the Indians and made it a state. Those born before statehood were given some land. Those born afterwards could become sharecroppers. My first girlfriend was named Too Late by her Cherokee father because she was born 2 weeks after statehood and received no land. It was she who, in an indirect way, was responsible for my first serious interest in music. My exposure to music had been very limited. Mama played church hymns on the organ. Cousin Grace sang classical stuff in a screechy voice wherever she was permitted. My brother and I spent many happy hours imitating her behind our barn. We took turns being on stage. It was one of the few things we enjoyed doing together. When my school girlfriend was 12 years old, I went to Crow's Nose jewelry store in Sallisaw and bought a nice ring for her. It cost $3. But I discovered later that she was somewhat immature and did not know what she wanted. One day coming home from school, she gave back the ring. Next day I was back in the jewelry store. It didn't work out, Mr. Crowsnow. Sorry to hear that, son. How would you like a nice guitar? No more girls, I decided. I would devote myself to music. I walked 1.5 miles home beating my guitar every step. I had no idea how to play the thing, but it wasn't in tune, but it sounded like sweet music to me. My musical career was cut short. My father said it was foolishness and a waste of time. Besides, he couldn't stand the noise. He made me take the guitar back. No hard feelings now, but the old man simply, as the saying goes, cut off his nose to spite his face. So I never became a famous guitarist, and I was usually broke, writing home for money. Music had never sounded as good as that music that I played that day coming home from school. However, now I feel that the music inside of me has surfaced in another way. The man called Country Joe McDonald is my son. Not long ago, I sat in a theater in San Francisco to see the movie Woodstock. I followed the bouncing ball and watched Joe lead 500,000 young people standing in the rain singing the song, The Vietnam Rag. 1, 2, 3, what are we fighting for? At that moment, I forgave my own father. I said aloud to myself, it's okay, Papa. Everything's okay. When my father was dying in his apartment in Berkeley, California, I used to go over and sing songs for him. The last conversation that we ever had, I asked him, what song do you want to hear today, Dad? And he said, sing So Long It's Been Good to Know You. And I thought, wow, that's something to write a song that communicates so much between two people. And I hope I've done a little bit of that during my life. And I would like to say to you, so long it's been good to know you. Thanks for coming out to hear my tribute to Woody Guthrie show, and I hope you got a little bit out of it, and I hope to see you on down the line sometime. I've sung this song and I'll sing it again about the place that I lived on the wild windy plain in the month of April in the county called Gray. Here's what all of the people there say. So long, it's been good to know you. So long, it's been good to know you. So
storm hit, and it hit like thunder. It dusted us over, it dusted us under. It blocked out the traffic, it blocked out the sun, and straight for home all the people did run, saying so long, it's been good to know you, so long, it's been good to know you, so long, it's been good to know you. This dusty old dust is getting my home, and I've got to be drifting along. Oh, the sweethearts, they sat in the dark and they sparked. They hugged and they kissed in that dusty old dark. They sighed and they cried, they hugged and they kissed. But instead of marriage, they talk like this. Honey, so long, it's been good to know you, so long. It's been good to know you, so long. It's been good to know you. This dusty old dust is getting my home, and I've got to be drifting along. Oh, the telephone rang, it jumped off the wall. That was the preacher making a call. He said, kind friend, this might be the end. It's your last chance for salvation from sin. Oh, the church, it was jammed, the church, it was packed. But that dusty old dust, you know, it glowed so black that the preacher could not read a word of his text. So he folded his specs and he took up a collection, saying so long, it's been good to know you, so long. It's been good to know you, so long. It's been good to know you. This dusty old dust is getting my home, and I've got to be drifting along.
As I mentioned, I do have some CDs for sale back at the bar, and I'll go back there after I do this one song. And I also have some order forms for a live version of this show, which is being manufactured right now. And it's a 2 CD set, and if you want to buy one of those, let me know, and I'll mail one to you. And and you can visit my website, countryjoe.com, if you're interested in checking out what I'm doing, and I'll have a new live performance album, a recording of War, the album, The Poem of Robert W. Service, which some people have been wanting for 20 years because the Vanguard won't reissue it, but I'll have one in about a month. So without further ado, here we go. Give me an F! Give me a U! Give me a C! Give me a K! What's that spell? What's that spell? What's that spell? What's that spell? Come on, all you big strong men. Uncle Sam needs to help again. Got himself in a terrible jam. Way down yonder in Vietnam. Put down your books, pick up a gun. Gonna have a whole lot of fun. And it's 1, 2, 3. What are we fighting for? Don't ask me, I don't give a damn. Next stop is Vietnam. And it's 5, 6, 7. Open up early gates. Yeah, there ain't no time. Wonder why we'll be on a dime. Come on, Wall Street, don't be slow. Oh, man, this is war a go-go. There's plenty good money to be made. Supply the army with the tools of the trade. Just up and pray your faith, drop the bomb. They drop it on the Viet Cong. And it's 1, 2, 3. What are we fighting for? Don't ask me, I don't give a damn. The next stop is Vietnam.
that's dead. You know that peace can only be won by the run of all the kingdom come. And it's 1, 2, 3. What are we fighting for? Don't ask me, I don't give a damn. The next stop is Iran. And it's 5, 6, 7. Open up the pearly gates. Yeah, there ain't no time to wonder why we're all gonna die. Come on, mothers throughout the land, back your boys up to Vietnam. Come on, fathers, don't hesitate. Send your daughters off before it's too late. Be the first one on your block. Have your kids come home in a box. And it's 1,